the most cost-efficient thing you can do to improve your property for turkey production is just limit the
This
amount of
week
time that you're
on Kentucky Afield, we went live on social media to answer all of your spring turkey hunting questions, and we're bringing you those answers right now. It's all next on Kentucky Afield.
Kentucky Afield. Every week, Kentucky Afield brings you features on hunting and fishing across the state.
That's my pup. I'm proud of him.
Here he comes right there. Let's get ready. Get ready.
Look at that. What a nice fish. Hey, we dug it up right there.
We did.
There he is. Ooh, a nice one, too. Boy, he's healthy.
What do we got?
That was awesome. Got the first help.
Got one. Big smallmouth.
Hey, nice.
Double point. They're in there.
There they go.
Oh, my gosh. Woo! Look at that joker. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. Whoa, this is a good one.
That's better than good, Chad.
Hello and welcome to Kentucky Afield. I'm your host, Chad Miles. Tonight, you have tuned into our spring turkey question and answer show. Hey, this show is actually about a week later than in previous years. Our turkey season's upon us, isn't it? The youth season is right around the corner.
Better be ready to go. I'm taking my nephew Braden Holly here next weekend.
Speaking right here, we have a familiar face, Zach Danks, who is our turkey program coordinator. How you doing?
Doing great, Chad.
Right here to his left, we have Merle, who is the Southeast Regional Biologist. How you doing?
doing great.
Now, you live in London, but you're from Eastern Kentucky.
Born and raised in Leslie County, yes, sir.
Leslie County. Thank you for having you aboard tonight. And then answering all our legal questions, we have Officer James Brace, who is a conservation officer right here in Franklin County.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Thank you for joining us. Say, hey, youth season's here, and the opening of the general season is right around the corner, April 15th through May the 7th. You guys doing any scouting, picking out anybody to turkey hunt, asking permission? What kind of phase are you guys in right now?
Yeah, never quite out of the phase of asking permission, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Anywhere you get a chance. But luckily where I live, every morning I can get up and do a little listening. So I've been doing that.
Yeah.
So
So you're hearing many
birds.
gobblers already?
Yeah, been hearing some birds.
All right, good.
Top secret, though.
That's the beautiful thing about turkey hunting. I'll tell you, it's a game that can be played with your ears, and you're looking for birds all the time. And man, when you're calling a bird and you're acting or interacting with that bird as it comes closer, that's where it's all at, isn't it? That's why it's so exciting.
It is really intense.
I know a lot of people out there, a lot of men and women across the state of Kentucky that turkey hunt. For a lot of them, this is their favorite hunting season.
It is. Yep. Very passionate.
Yeah.
Very passionate group of hunters.
Well, we have a ton of questions that have already come in, and I've already read some of them. We got a list of great questions. So question number one, Jordan Schaefer wants to know, what do you think is worse on the turkey population, either nest predators or cutting during the nesting season? So lawnmowers versus nest raiders. Man, that's going to be a tough one. What do you think?
Well, good question. I guess I would sort of rephrase it. It doesn't have to be an either or. A lot of times they work together. When we mow at an inopportune time, you know, besides destroying the nest, you've just potentially wiped out nesting habitat, brooder and habitat. So best to wait till outside of those seasons. But certainly predators are responsible for the majority of nest losses. So they kind of go hand in hand, and predators are going to be more effective where you don't have good habitat. So you know, that's again why we have campaigns to help landowners manage their properties to provide that habitat. Maybe if they take advantage of some trapping, it's great recreation and can potentially help too.
If you're a landowner out there and you know that you have turkeys and they're nesting on your property, what is kind of the first date that you could say, hey, you could probably start your mowing process? And mowing's never a great thing, but if you're just, you say, hey, I have to mow, and what is the first date that you think that you gotta say, well, you're safe to not be killing poults or damaging nests?
If we're talking just bush hogging or recreational type mowing, not hay, because clearly if you're cutting hay, you got to cut hay when it's right. But you know, wait till August anyway, if you can at all.
Okay.
I mean, if you're just mowing to keep your field maintained, first off, there's some other options, and again, I implore you to talk to biologists that we employ. But, you know, wait till August, September, October. Wait till it's cool, but not so buggy and more pleasant to drive a tractor.
Yeah. Good information. I'll tell you what, I mow a little bit at my house.
And that just gets you away from the full nesting season.
Yeah.
Because we do have some late nests coming off in June, July. So that'll get you outside of it.
Spend more time looking for those turkeys instead of mowing those potential nests. Huh?
Absolutely.
Next question is from Drew. It's an Instagram question. What's the most impactful thing a private landowner can do or have done to their property to boost turkey production? I know you get asked this question a lot as a biologist.
Yeah.
People that they want more small game, they want more turkeys, they want more deer, and some of the things you would have them do are all the same for each of these different species. But if someone said, hey, the very first thing I want to do is boost my turkey population, what are you going to have them do?
Well, it goes along with what Zach was just talking about, and I think the most cost-efficient thing you can do to improve your property for turkey production is just limit the amount of time that you're spending on the mower and on the bush hog. Try to give these hens a place where there's good nesting cover, good brood rearing habitat, and just simply by mowing less, you're going to achieve that. So that's one thing that you can do, the easiest thing. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Next question is Tim from Instagram. Says he's going to be mentoring a 14-year-old Kentucky resident during the youth season on a farm that her mother owns and they currently live on. Does she need a hunting license? And if not, how is she going to telecheck a harvest if they're successful?
Yes, sir. So to answer that question, she is legally allowed to hunt that land because her mom owns the property, so she's a tenant of that property since she lives there as well. And basically, once she harvests her animal, she'll need to have a harvest log, and that's just an index piece of paper where she can fill out the date, the species of that animal, the sex of that animal, and also the county where that animal is taken, and just make sure that she calls it in before midnight the day of the harvest. Telecheck it.
A lot of people, they get afraid to call that number because they think, oh my gosh, I don't want to call because I don't have everything I need, or I don't know if I really need to do this. I don't have a number associated to it. You know, when you call it in, one of the very first questions it asks you is it on a statewide permit or if it's on a youth license or something along the lines. Right off the bat, you're going to get asked a question. It's going to be pretty intuitive on which direction you go.
Correct.
At what age do you need to have a license? On a landowner, it really doesn't matter her age at this point.
Correct.
In time, right?
Landowners are what we call license exempt here in Kentucky. The youth have to have a license between the ages of 12 to 15. That's a youth license. And then anybody over the age of 15, so starting at 16, you have to have your statewide license. Okay. And then at 64, you can get a senior license, what we call it in Kentucky. Okay.
So it really doesn't matter her age now. She wants to hunt during the youth season, so she has to be under what age to hunt during the youth season?
Between the ages under 12, or from 12 to 15 during the youth season, correct.
So the youth season, so she's 14, youth season.
Correct, she's good to go.
Property, she's good to go. She just needs to telecheck any harvest.
Yes, this weekend she's good to go.
All right.
You know, just to piggyback on what he was saying, telechecking your animal, if you go online and create a profile on our website too, you can do all that online. And instead of calling in and waiting for those prompts, you've got that drop-down box, you know, you can see everything. That's what I do. I always go through my profile.
Probably what she'll be more comfortable with anyway.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Instead of calling you.
I tell you what, when you get your My Profile set up, once you get that done, man, that is so incredibly simple. Now you got to have internet service, but you can go through and do, like you say, do the drop downs, and it automatically saves it and sends it to your email address. It's kind of nice.
You can look at you can look at previous harvest on there. You can print off a new harvest log. You can reprint your orange card. It's really handy.
It's very, very, very handy. I know I use it quite often. Next one is from Austin Metcalf. What are your opinions on using a 410 for turkey hunting? Man, this is becoming really popular and has dramatically changed in the last 10 years. If someone would have asked you, Zach, how many years you been doing this?
41 and killed my first bird at 14. So,
if someone would have asked you at 15, 16 years old what your thoughts were on using a 410, would you have probably said, "Oh, I don't think so"?
Wasn't even an option. I used my dad's 12 gauge until I got my own 12 gauge, and
you used that because he didn't have a 10 gauge. But everybody went the biggest gun you could pack and shoulder, and man, that has really changed due to ammunition getting better, turkey chokes getting better, new materials that they're using with tungsten and bismuth and whatever else they're using.
Tungsten loaded in a 12 gauge right here. Tungsten was a game changer for 410s and 20s. Yeah.
Complete game changer. So this individual's wanting to know about your opinions on using a 410. What's your opinion?
There's no question they're legal with the loads we've got nowadays. I mean, the most important thing is that you shoot the gun and know what it's capable of. These loads allow extended ranges, but that doesn't mean you should take super long ranges, especially with a 410. You know, get comfortable in a range that
40 yards is it's a long shot,
and it's
for a turkey.
It's plenty long, man. Don't risk wounding a bird.
Yeah,
because we often, when we think we miss birds, we actually pepper the bird. It wounds them, and they could go off and die later.
Yeah,
so you just removed the bird from the population, except you didn't bag it.
Yeah.
But so 410s are completely legal. I'm going to hunt with one this spring.
Yeah.
It's my dad's old 410, but I've got a nice new load in it, so I'm excited, and I think it can be very effective.
What's your opinion on using a 410?
I think it's perfectly fine. Again, piggybacking on what he said, shoot your weapon, see what the effective range is, what the best choke and shell combo you got. But if you're using a 410, especially on a decoy set, and you've got a child or even an adult that's wanting to use it, if you're comfortable out to 20 yards, just limit yourself to that range. And even this tungsten, I'm using it in a 12 gauge. Like Zach said, it's people can push the limits on that, but we don't need to do that. Just because the gun's capable of maybe getting out there and killing a bird in extended range doesn't mean that's what we need to do. We still need to be shooting birds within 40, 45 yards.
And I'll tell you something that's interesting, and I actually experienced this. There are certain chokes that are made for tungsten and materials like that. You need to make sure you got the right choke for your gun that you're shooting. Just switching if you're shooting a 410 and you go, oh man, this ammo is finally available, I really want this ammo, and you swap that ammo out, and in that choke tube that may have worked great with the previous load, doesn't mean it's going to shoot really good. Man, they change. Shoot the ammo with the choke tube, with the gun, and pattern it that way. And if any changes you make, go back to the range and shoot a time or two and make sure it's good, because they can change pretty dramatically.
Right.
You change out ammo on a choke tube or choke tube on an ammo, it's a different ballgame. So you may go, yeah, I shot my gun, but yeah, I'm going to try this ammo this year. Shoot that ammo in it and see what it does. So are you seeing 410s and 20 gauges in the field a lot more?
Yes, sir. But our biggest thing is keeping it between that 410 gauge to the 10 gauge. That's what we are looking for when we come to check you.
Yeah, yeah. And then how many shots is your gun allowed to hold when turkey hunting?
3 total shells in the shotgun. So your shotgun must be plugged. That meaning 1 in the chamber and 2 in the magazine. So just remember, 3 shells total, must have a plug.
Okay, yeah. That's something you need to check if you're borrowing a gun or if you're, it's a new gun to you, make sure, take it out and make sure that it won't hold that 4th round, because that could be problematic. All right, next question, Sam from Instagram. What predators need to be managed better to help turkey populations? Man, there are a bunch of them, aren't there?
There are, yeah. Yeah, the main ones we can control are the mammalian predators that are either on nests or can take adults. And so, like I said earlier, trapping is an incredible recreational pursuit. Unfortunately, the number of trappers and trapping participation has kind of gone down, but it seems to be that people are more and more interested in it, somewhat out of concern for turkey populations. So can you have an effect on your property? Potentially, but just be aware trapping you're going to have to do a lot of it for a long time to have an impact, but most people are talking about trying to control get a handle on the nest predators, so raccoons, possums, skunks. Coyotes and bobcats get a bad rap. Certainly they will take adult turkeys on occasion. A hen on a nest is probably your biggest source of adult mortality there that you're going to see. So, just get into trapping with somebody that knows, or if you are a trapper, then take advantage of the season that we have. We have 4 or 5 months of good trapping weather, and especially if you do it late winter leading up to nesting season, maybe that could have an impact. But just be aware of the realities. We can't control avian predators. They're protected by federal law. And then anything you do with predators is going to be really second fiddle to making sure that your land is fully usable to your turkey population. If it's not, then you're trapping efforts might not be as fruitful.
You know, you were talking earlier about mowing. If your tires and your blades on your miss the nest and the eggs stay completely intact, you've exposed it to the world with no way to hide.
No.
And that can be a major problem. That's when the turkey nest rating can really take effect because there's nothing hiding it. It's out there in the wide open. It's like it's like a big apple sitting on this table, right? I'm probably going to eat it.
It is, yeah. Sometimes turkeys will lay their nest in very short vegetation, though, you know.
Yeah.
In the woods, and they don't cover it up that well. When they're laying, they'll shuffle some leaves over it.
Yeah.
But it is amazing. There's not much nest there, and sometimes they don't nest in tall cover.
Yeah.
Usually they do. So
yeah.
Just kind of keep that in mind. If you got some scrubby areas on your place, again, don't mow from March to July if you can handle it. July, August.
All right. Next question. Jason Carney, does Fish and Wildlife have expectations for this year's season based on last year's hatch? And how was last year's hatch? This is a very interesting question because it's a lot of the work that you guys gather is all based on birds that are being seen and mortality rates and hatch rates.
Yep.
But it's really not last year's hatch you're going to be hunting for the most part, right?
That's right. It's a good point. Last year's, we did have a pretty good hatch, especially relative to the last few years. But 2 summers ago, 2021, we actually had a really good hatch. We had our best hatch since 2008, which is the highest we've had in recent times. And so I'm pretty hopeful that we're going to have a good spring harvest this year. And that's backed up by observations I've heard. I've heard more good reports from folks in the field. And for our research project where we're trapping turkeys, this year our field staff, Merle, you can, I don't know if this is your case with you, but a lot of our guys are seeing more gobblers and bigger groups of gobblers, which I think just corroborates the data that we got and the reports I've been getting. So it's all about reproduction, and the majority of the harvest is going to be 2-year-old birds. So whatever happened 2 years ago, that's the key.
And historically, this has kind of worked out as well. You were talking about one of the highest turkey harvest years we've ever had. 2 years prior to that, we saw that we had a really good number of poults.
Yeah, our record harvest in 2010, 36,000 turkeys. No doubt in my mind that was due to a boom in reproduction that occurred in 2008. Basically 2/3 of Kentucky, all but the far western part of the state, had the periodical cicada that emerges every 17 years. And it was like a tremendous food source for turkeys, tremendous food source for predators that would otherwise be eating turkeys. So we see this in other states, Indiana, Ohio, and we saw it last year to a certain degree or 2 years ago from a smaller hatch. But those are things that, keeping everything else constant, you get a big boom of a food source like that, it can really help things. That's what happened back in 2008 and 2010, and we've not seen anything like that since. We've kind of come back down to the baseline, and we just fluctuate. Turkey populations are variable, and reproduction is variable. That's why. So, but on your farm, on your property, you really need to be thinking about all you can do to increase the reproductive success of your population. So.
Next question is from Danny Poundstone. My buddy and I are residents of Indiana and are wanting to hunt public land this spring. Any suggestions on places to turkey hunt in the state? So public land places, some WMAs, where would you recommend someone coming in that don't have a piece of private land to hunt? What WMAs would you kind of say, hey, check it out?
Yeah, it's a question I get fairly often, and you can go different routes. You can go on large area WMAs, so you got room to roam, maybe a little less likely to run into other folks, or you can kind of go to where we've got some of the highest quality habitat, best habitat management going on. We do have a new regulation that is in effect this year that you can only take 1 bird per WMA.
Okay.
So that's just something to keep in mind. I wanted to make sure we said. So you can kill both of your birds, your 2-bird spring limit, on public lands, but it can't be on the same WMA.
Gotcha.
So you could, for example, those guys coming down could hit, clay WMA, and a guy could take a bird there. Really good habitat management, pretty good size area, but not the biggest. Maybe then they'll go west to Peabody Wildlife Management Area. Much bigger area. A lot of birds are killed there. but you got room to spread out. And the habitat's a little different, landscape's a little different. Then of course you got the Daniel Boone National Forest that Merle can probably speak to because he's based out of there. You know, so we've got some big tracks. Just spend some time scouting, go to our website. The map section is really good, but you can have luck on any area that's of decent size, and if you're willing to deal with running into some folks and you know other hunters, and trying to go during the week if you can at all.
And I'll tell you what, an area that's overlooked is Fort Knox.
Oh,
now,
yeah,
Fort
absolutely.
Knox is a very large tract, but you can't show up that morning and hunt Fort Knox. There's some pre-work that has to go in.
Yeah.
You have to go out there and you have to register your guns with them, and there's a sign-up process,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of things that has to happen. But Fort Knox is a great opportunity.
It is, yeah.
to
Their
go out-
season's a little different too. They
Yeah, okay.
typically open a little bit earlier than the statewide season.
Okay.
So yeah, do your homework there and
Spend a little time doing a little research, and you know, you got to put the time, effort, and energy in on something like that. But it's a great opportunity, isn't it?
it is. They do a lot of great habitat management there too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So maybe that's
Kudos.
something to check out as well. Next question for Pat. Can I have a rifle with me while turkey hunting in case he sees a coyote? We're getting this question, a lot of people that, you know, we get these questions quite a bit for multiple hunting seasons where they're like, this is my targeted species, this season's open, but this opportunity still exists in this location, and he wants to take a different firearm.
Yes, sir. So the short answer to that is yes. And basically, as long as your shotgun is intended to hunt that turkey and your 22 rifles intended to shoot that coyote, you're perfectly fine. So,
Yeah, yeah.
like I said, the answer to that question is yes.
Okay. Next question, Jackson from Instagram. How can prescribed burns be useful to improve turkey habitat? Man, I tell you what, we talk a lot about prescribed burns and fire. We showcase some of the work that we do on our wildlife management areas, and we've talked about the benefit. Tell me a little bit about some of the benefits you guys have seen, and if you have a piece of property, what do you have to go through to get a prescribed burn potentially done there?
Sure, yeah. Actually brought a drip torch with me because I thought that may come up. Prescribed fire has kind of been my life for about the last 2 months. As biologists and managers, we use it on the regular each spring. And specifically to the question, fire can be a heck of a tool for managing your property for good brood rearing habitat. And it's very site specific. It depends on the vegetation type that you have on your property and the surrounding landscape. So I would encourage anyone that wants to implement prescribed fire as a tool on their property to reach out to their local private lands biologist so they can help them develop a burn plan that's going to best suit them and their needs for that property. But just an example of how it could potentially affect your property. Let's say you have a 5-acre field that you're mowing annually. And you're going to mow that field every year. Well, each time you mow that field, you're going to increase the amount of thatch that's on the soil. And that thatch layer is going to continue to accumulate over time. And turkey posts don't like to navigate through this thatch layer. It's harder for them to escape predators. So if you burn it, the fire is going to consume this thatch layer. It's going to consume the existing vegetation. And now suddenly you've exposed this seed bank to sunlight. And kind of hit the reset button, you know, on this field. And you're going to have a more diverse plant community that's going to respond to that. Within a couple of weeks, the field's going to green up. You're going to start to see hens coming to the field, and then toms are going to be behind them strutting and displaying. So in the short term, you've created a heck of a spot to hunt birds. You know, you might kill a bird or two in that field, but fast forward a couple months down the road, and now you've got a place for this hen to bring her potes, you know, because there's going to be more insects coming to this field from all the native forbs that are coming up, and the potes can move freely about the field. So fire it's a great tool that landowners can use, and you know, under the right parameters, it's safe. But again, I think they should reach out to their private lands guys or gals out there. That way they can tailor a plan to help them out.
Yeah, you don't want to go just throw a fire down on your own property. That can get really, I mean,
doing it the wrong way.
A lot of rules and regulations you guys abide by wind and how much moisture is in the ground and how you're going to set them out and how you go about preventing anything getting loose. But if you go about and do it the right way through the Department of Fish and Wildlife, it can be extremely beneficial. It's the reason why we do it on so many of our wildlife management areas. And as far as cost go, it's one of the most cost-effective ways to manage habitat, is it not?
It is, yeah. Yeah, if you got four-wheelers, UTVs, anyway, probably, if you know, places you hunt, and spray tank, tractor, you know, those things can really help. You need a disc implement to put in fire breaks, but I mean, there's no doubt it's cost effective, and it's just like produces the best quality habitat, you know, something that hen can see over, but her poults can move through, but still be protected by that freshly grown vegetation. I mean, it's really good. You know, if you follow turkey hunting down south, prescribed fire is very common down there. Pine forests are often managed with fire. It's less common here nowadays, but it used to be. I mean, my grandfather's generation and before, fire was very common. We've kind of lost that as a management tool. So get some training. There's a lot of resources out there now. The department has just been putting on some of these learn and burn weekends. It's really learn to burn weekends. It's super neat opportunity. And you can even take a course through the Kentucky Prescribed Fire Council to be able to burn yourself, your property, and get a lot of training and advice from experts. So I talk about it, and it's a great question because we need more of it. But as we get more of it, we need to do it carefully and responsibly.
So if you have a piece of property and you want to see if it's a candidate for fire, you can always reach out and contact your local biologist.
You should start there, yeah. Contact
What's the
your
best
local.
way to do that?
You could call the info center, 800-858-1549, or if you want to go online, it's simple as clicking on the Contact Us tab. There'll be a drop-down box for each county. Select the county where you reside or where your farm is located, and then it's going to populate a list with private lands biologist, a regional biologist, your fisheries biologist, the SEPL. I mean, it's all right there for you. So
It's amazing because I get a lot of calls. People want to pick the phone up and give me a call or find me on Facebook or whatever. And a lot of the answers to the question is, hey, what county you live in? Go on, contact us, do your drop-down box. Like you say, it might be a conservation educator question. It might be about how do you reach out to your local conservation officer, fisheries biology. All of those contacts by county are on there. And for a lot of people, that's a great starting point. Yeah. Go there and contact that individual that's in your area that may know what suits you best and is closer to coming to you, either for fisheries management or come walk your property if it's a conservation officer that having issues with people sneaking in, whatever it may be. That's a great place to start for the most part. So that's very good. I'm glad you put that out there. Next question is from Kentucky Cabin on Instagram. Can you tell us more about the turkey banding program? This is interesting because I don't know how many different programs we have, but you and I were out and actually caught some turkeys did some banding.
Yep.
And I think that was it Woodford County we were in that day?
It was, yep.
And that was really interesting. Tell me about how you capture these birds and then why you're doing it and what information do we gather from it?
Yeah, well, the episode worked out really nice. It was a great episode on Kentucky Afield, so check that show out. Check your show out if you haven't, because it shows the process pretty well. We basically scout out properties, talk to landowners, or in some cases on our public lands, find flocks of birds and lay down some bait, start getting the birds accustomed. We'll put a trail camera there at the bait site, and when we see them coming in routinely, after a few days, then we'll try to trap them. Usually we either have our net laid out on the ground, folded up and kind of hidden with rockets to propel the net over them, or we stuff it into a big plywood box that'll fire the net. But guys like Merle have been working for several weeks now catching birds for me for research project. The banding project is designed to help us get information about the harvest pressure we put on the turkey population. It's really, really critical. So Merle's located in our southeast region, and we've got guys across the state. But what we're trying to do is capture one phase. The main phase that I deal with is capturing gobblers and jakes. And we put metal leg bands on them, and then that's our sample essentially, and then we'll get a certain proportion of those will get harvested by hunters. Shoot a banded bird, look at that band, it'll provide instructions on how to report it. Go to our website. When we get that information in, then we can look at that proportion of banded birds that got harvested. And that can give us an important piece of information called harvest rate. Okay, so I can tell you how many birds were telechecked every year, but that number is only so valuable because the population changes every year. But if we know the percentage of gobblers out there that get harvested, then we can really put our thumb on the pressure that we're putting on the population. This has been done in many states for many years. It just hasn't been done in Kentucky for several years, so that's why we're trying to gather today. It's a 4-year study. We just finished the second year of it. And again, we had great cooperation from our landowners, our partners, and other divisions in the department. We had some university folks because we're partnering with Tennessee Tech University on it. And yeah, it's just a great source of information that I can't wait for the results for. But
you can also, do you gather information on movement? You know where you banded it.
Yeah.
And you know when you banded it. If it turns up and it's, 2 miles away or 15 miles away, you can help gather some of that
great information. Yeah, when I really enjoy talking to the hunters because they're excited about having shot a banded turkey. It's not common in Kentucky. Hasn't happened in decades. Some guys have shot banded waterfowl, and that's cool. But we just have a conversation. And in some cases, the birds have moved several farms away. And then a lot of times they're on the same farm.
Yeah.
Turkeys are variable. They're very hard to predict. But yeah, it's really neat hearing the range of possibilities, and it's just great information for us.
If you walk up on a bird you've harvested legally in the field and it's got a band on it, though, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call. We want the information.
Absolutely.
And for some of these bands, there's actually a reward, isn't there?
There are, yeah. 1/4 of all the bands we put out are reward bands.
So there's a monetary reward. We anticipate these birds being harvested at a certain rate, and we want that information back, and there could be a financial incentive for the hunter.
Absolutely, and a shout out to the National Wild Turkey Federation, the Kentucky State Chapter, for funding those reward payments.
Yeah.
And a shout out to the sportsmen, the license buyers of the state, for supporting this research, because that's where our money comes from.
Yeah, fantastic.
While you're giving shout outs, I'm going to give one to the landowners too, because there's so many landowners that's given us permission to come on their farms to be able to catch these birds, and we couldn't do it without them. So,
No, that's an important point, because most of Kentucky is privately owned. If we did this research solely on public land, well, that would only tell us so much. We wouldn't be looking at the broader, where most of the population is. So yes, absolutely. Thanks to our landowners.
But you guys have banded quite a bit of public land as well. So if you're a hunter and you hunt only public land, it's not like you're out of the game to kill a banded bird. They're there.
They are.
So you guys have done some of that. Jacob wants to know, can you fan for turkeys on public land? Wow, this is legally. People call it fanning or reaping for turkeys. Is it legal on public land?
It is legal. There's no regulations against reaping or fanning, but we strongly suggest, that you don't do it. It's unsafe, but it is perfectly, if you want to do it, you can. But like I said, it's not, how you should be hunting. So.
Yeah. Reaping is something I have seen be extremely successful. No way I would go reap on public lands. I just don't.
It's a big risk. Yeah.
It's a really big risk. Now, seeing how a bird will respond in some situations is pretty impressive, to say the least.
It is, yeah. You're totally taking advantage of that bird's tendency this time of year to want to fight.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting technique that's happened, and we're experts are studying the effects of it, because we don't know the ultimate safety implications, and so just be safe. Use common sense, public land.
It's one of those things. If I was wanting to try to decoy a buck, and I'm walking out there, if I'm during firearm season, I'm full hunter's orange, front and back, hat. Yeah, I might be carrying a buck decoy, but I am solidly hunter's orange. When you're decoying or reaping for a turkey, on many of these occasions, you're full camo. Your face, hands, every aspect of your body is completely full camo, but yet you're holding what looks to be like what people are hunting for. Just be careful. I know that a lot of these decoy bags will allow you to turn them inside out, and they have a hunter's orange on one side. Very smart suggestion. To walk in there fully camo carrying a turkey or reaping, just make sure you're being careful. You know your surroundings and what's around you. And if you decide to do that, it can be effective, but just be cautious. The next question is from Dwayne McQueen. He wants to know, what's the best time to hunt, mornings or middays? Man, this is an interesting question.
If you ask 5 or 6 different hunters, they're probably going to give you some different answers. Personally, I like being out there before the day breaks and just watching the woods come to life. There's nothing like, hearing the birds singing, and then you finally hear that bird gobble. Hopefully you put him to bed last night, you're hoping he's going to be roosting there, and suddenly he sounds off. And so I love hunting birds right off the roost. But if I went back and counted it up, I probably killed more turkeys between 9 and 12 than I have sunrise and 9, but I would still pick early morning if it's me.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
You just love being out, It's just nothing like first thing in the morning. And you get a handle on where birds were, So if it doesn't work out off the roost, well, you know where a bird was. It can happen if you're patient.
Oh, yeah.
Both my birds last year were afternoon.
Yeah.
It can be very effective. If a bird is fired up in the afternoon, it can be effective. So
I'll tell you what, how you guys study turkeys all the time. I have found places where I know they're roosting in a certain place, and you can hunt that in the afternoon and knowing they're making their way back by a certain way, a certain ridge line, certain whatever. How often do turkeys roost in the exact same location?
not exactly the same general area, but they don't use the same tree night after night typically. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but
turkeys,
it's not.
In my experience, the turkeys, a lot of times, if there's a hillside, they're going to be roosting on that tree that's kind of to the top of that hillside. A lot of times they'll kind of make their way up there. It seems like they want an area where when they pitch off that roost, they've got a nice, easy way to kind of go wherever they want and allow height to help them out. It seems like if you're trying to get in a spot where you're going to try to catch one coming back or on its way, that field edge close to where you think they're going up there might be a good spot to be. But I'm not a great turkey hunter by no stretch, but I've probably killed as many from 10 o'clock to 3 or 4 in the afternoon as I have early in the morning.
If you get a bird to respond to you that late in the morning into the afternoon hours, more times than not, he'll work easier than he will sometimes right off the roost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think the roosting question it depends on the landscape too.
Yeah.
Like growing up hunting the mountains, like in Daniel Boone National Forest, where there's no shortage of roost sites and roost trees, they'll be in the same general area. But there was one spot in particular I used to hunt. There was a river that flowed through there, and on 3 different mornings, I would set up on the wrong side of the river on those birds. Like they'd be over there, and I think I'm going to get them tomorrow. Go over there, they'd roost across the river on me. So I mean, same general area, but I'm sure as you get into areas that have more agriculture and less good roost sites, they're probably a little easier to pattern. So it probably just varies across the state.
Yeah, yeah. Next question is by Brandon. What's the most common error or violation that Officer Brace sees in the field during turkey season? So what is the #1 violation that you encounter in turkey season?
Most common, definitely gonna go to your license and your permits. But as far as what I've written, I'd say probably an unplugged shotgun, just for them not knowing or lack of knowing, maybe thinking, hey, that extra couple plugs might help me, but ideally you're only shooting that turkey at that turkey one time. It's gonna get spooked and go away, but probably an unplugged shotgun is probably #1 violation I've written in my short time on.
So check that shotgun, pick it up, and make sure, especially if it's a borrowed shotgun, don't trust someone else. Pick it up, pattern it yourself, shoot it yourself, make sure that it is exactly what you intended it to be, and that's accurate, patterned well, and only holds 3 shells maximum. So one of these things, everybody's shooting 410s, and a lot of them people are going to single shots. I see more new shotguns that are bought now that are single shots, and a lot of them are using a scope on them now. 20 gauge and 410s. A lot of people are moving to single shots, aren't they?
They are. That's what I'm shooting.
You're shooting a single shot? How about you?
No, I've got a 12 gauge. It holds 3 and a red dot on top of it. So I like gadgets, but yeah.
You are shooting a red dot as well?
I did. I noticed the point of impact on my gun was a little off, shooting down the barrel, so red dot fixed that for me. Yeah.
I know you do a little turkey hunting yourself. So what type of shotgun are you using?
I haven't been successful yet, but it's going to be probably a semi-automatic and maybe have a red dot on it. So.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. All right, next question, Jason Carney. Does the new baiting regulations include baiting for deer, even if I don't turkey hunt on that property? So he's worried about the season that he's not allowed to bait. He doesn't turkey hunt it. He wants to know if he can continue baiting.
No, it's everything. I mean.
Correct, yep. So as he said before, don't put feed out from March 1 until July 31st.
Doesn't matter what you're intending to feed unless it's in the curtilage of your home. Now, that does not include a food plot, right? If you're going to come out and you're going to do natural agriculture and you're going to do a food plot, which is a great way
It is.
to put a spot to turkey hunt and deer hunt. What would you plant if you were going to put out a food plot?
It just depends time of year, man. It's really, you want a diversity of food sources. So if you've got enough land, it'd be a good idea to have some good warm season forages, and then some good fall cool season stuff too. Clover's a hard one to beat if you got to pick one.
Clover's what I was going to say. Yeah, clover's hard to beat. It's easy to establish, and with a little management, you can have that clover plot for several growing seasons. Yeah. But again, I think it's important to remember that food plots are just one piece of the puzzle. You know, think of those as an attractant. If you really want to better the turkey population and make better turkey habitat on your property, I know we keep going back to cover, but that's what we need more of, good quality cover.
A good friend, just to relate a story, was an local NWTF chapter president, and I remember being a teenager and him telling me the best food plot for turkeys is just a weed patch. And it's funny because, you know, years later when I became a biologist and studied this stuff, I mean, I know it to be the case now. And it's cheap, it harbors insects the poults needs. And so, you know, you can even let a food plot go fallow and get weedy, and it can still be killer for hunting and for poult production too. So, you know, don't overlook weeds for a year or two.
Next question here is from Adam Jolly. What is the best way to know if the toms are henned up in your area? Man, I tell you what, pulling a tom off of if he's henned up with a hen can be pretty tough. What's the best way to know if that's going on?
You'll probably know it. You won't be able to pull him off. I mean,
no,
it's
he ain't
hard.
going to work, and he may not gobble. He'll gobble good on the limb, and when he hits the ground, nothing.
And that happens a lot here in Kentucky. If you run into a situation that you're at the truck and you're doing a locator call, or you're trying to figure out how you're going to start your day, and you hear them gobbling, and you get in there and they're gobbling, and your anticipation is sky high, and you hear those birds come off the limb and you hear nothing, probably what happened to you.
Yeah,
it happens a lot.
They'll humble you. Yeah.
But you know what? If you'll hold tight and not spook that bird, not move around too much, and you did a little call and they kind of know you're there, give him time to kind of work out and do what he's doing and with the hens he's with, it's a good chance that about 10 to noon he may come check back in on you. So don't let that discourage you, because it can still be effective to get them after the fact. Hard to pull them off during that time, but after they're kind of out there and done and come back, it's a good opportunity. You can bring that bird in, isn't there?
It is, absolutely.
I probably, like I said, we were talking about your favorite time to hunt. I probably had that situation happen to me more than any other. Get out there, you hear them, you get excited, birds come down.
There's nothing like it to lift your spirits about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Your stomach starts growling, you're tempted to go back to the truck, and then you hear one sound off, and you get a chance to go after it.
Yeah.
You forget about being hungry.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's great. I've been lucky. I've had it happen both ways. I had them fly right off the roost and land. When their feet hit the ground, they were in range. But that doesn't happen very often. That's kind of one of those lucky situations.
It's never happened to me. I want it to, but it has never happened. No. I've had them flying close, but not that close.
We had one where we heard them. We had a blind, and we're like, they're right on our blind. By the time we got in there and set up, you could hear them flying over the blind. It sounded like they were on top of it. And when their feet hit the ground, we're like, well, they're in range. And that's pretty exciting, but that's rare. That doesn't necessarily happen that often. Next question is from Don Crampton. Can you call too much to a responsive gobbler? And if so, how do you know when you're overcalling a gobbler?
If anybody can do it, I can. Because I love to call. I mean, I'm just yak, yak, yak. So I don't know. I guess I've probably not killed as many birds as I would have if I'd shut up a few times. But that's just the way I hunt. Yeah. And I would say, though, if you're calling to a bird and he's not responding to you, a lot of times that's a setup issue. Yeah. Either that or he's got hens with him. That's a possibility, too.
Yeah,
but if that bird's out there gobbling, you're calling, he's responding, but he's not coming, I would play it smart and hush up for a bit. And if that doesn't work, maybe just move a little bit if you can move without him spotting on you.
Yeah, yeah.
And try a different setup or, yeah.
You ever overcalled a bird?
I'm sure I have, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to know.
I don't know that you can ever really know, you know.
Yeah.
It's
just like you feel like you didn't finish the deal, and if you see a bird and you're calling to it, and you can visually see the bird, and you're trying to bring it across the field, and he starts making their way, and you're like, I'm normally don't call when they're walking my way, and they stop, or if they're in strut, they kind of go back down. And he's like, all right, let's see if I still got their attention. You make a couple calls, and they flare up and start coming toward you again, like, hey, this is working, until they turn and go the other way. And then you're like, wait a minute, I thought we had something going here. And then you start calling, trying to get them to respond, and
Too late, yeah.
You don't really know were they not going to come no matter how you called or didn't call, or it's hard to tell if you overcalled or not.
I mean, sometimes you can call like crazy to them and it still works out. I mean, I've been on hunts like that where the person I was with was calling. I tend to be a little more conservative about it. The person I'm with is calling a lot, and I'm thinking, man, you need to tone it down a little bit, and it still works out. So you just don't know. It's all about that bird in that moment, where his hormones are, and if you're in the right place at the right time, make it happen.
I've had that exact situation. I tend to not call as much, but I'll tell you, I worked a bird one day for 3 straight hours, and I could not get that bird to commit. And I was doing my normal light calling. I'm watching him. I'm like, I'd call, and I wouldn't call for 5, 6, 10 minutes, and I'd give him a couple of yelps, and then I still got their attention. And I was like, that bird's not going to get here, and it's not going to make it. And I just started calling ridiculously loud and often, and that bird came on a string right to me after playing with him for 3 hours. You just don't know. They're kind of like people. Sometimes they respond to different things. Like we have this on video where I literally watched the bird and called to it and kept his attention in a field, and he just wouldn't come until I just got ridiculous with the call and brought him in. So, hey, I wouldn't do that on day one, I'll tell you that, because I may want to go back and try that bird again. But we had already hunted out there for a couple of days. We're like, well, we got nothing to lose. We're moving to another piece of property. Let's see how this works out. Brought the bird right to us. So
I'm curious, was you using decoys? I bet you were, right?
We were using
and I think that could make a big difference too.
Yeah.
Like if you have that decoy set out there, over calling, you might be able to get away with it a little bit, but like hunting birds in the woods is a different game.
Yeah.
You know, so
we were using decoys out on the field, and we could see it 300 yards away, strutting back and forth. We kept seeing it, what's going on. We couldn't see what else it may be able to see. Maybe there was hens there. And then ultimately it just got to where let's just either run him away or bring him in, and lo and behold, we got lucky.
That's why we keep going back.
That's right.
I mean, for situations like that, because they'll either humble you or they'll surprise you, make you forget about being hungry. So.
Yeah, I'd rather be lucky, huh?
Yeah.
Next question is from David Gingrich. What is the best way to cook wild turkey? Man, there's a lot of ways to cook wild turkey. What's your favorite way to have wild turkey?
I'm from Kentucky. I like fry 'em.
Fry 'em, yeah. It's pretty hard to beat that. What about yourself?
I'll second that. Yeah, I love to fry them. My daughter, she's 9. She loves Chick-fil-A, and I found this copycat Chick-fil-A turkey nugget recipe.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's my go-to now with her.
I hate to be advertising for Chick-fil-A, but Chick-fil-A, their sauce on turkey nuggets are pretty daggone good. I mean, literally the little mustard sauce that they use, pretty good. My kids like that sauce, and they like that on their turkey as well. So, what about you? What's your favorite way to have turkey?
I'd say put it in the smoker.
Oh, yeah.
Smoke it.
You like to smoke it? Okay, there you go. That's something that I have tried.
Something different.
Yeah, really good. I will say one thing when it comes to cooking wild game. If you cook a lot of regular turkey, don't put it in there for the same heat and same amount of time. Go online and look for a recipe, because you can. When you overcook wild turkey, you know you've overcooked it.
It's a good point. Yeah, get a good meat thermometer.
I think
that ruins a lot of wild game. People just overcook it.
Overcook it, yeah, because you won't cook a wild turkey as long as you cook a regular, store-bought turkey. So
except the legs, if you try to eat them, you cook them as long as you can.
Cook them as long as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, there not as much meat on a wild turkey leg, is there? Next question is from Philip. How close do you set up on a roosted bird?
Depends on the foliage a lot of times. And it depends if he's across the field and I've got to cross that field to get to him. But I like to set up within 150 yards if I can. And if it is a situation where I'm crossing a field or something, I'll get in there under the cover of darkness. But I think if you can get within 150 yards of a bird, you're in the chips a lot of times.
Okay. Yeah. All right. What's your thoughts? How close do you like to get?
Yeah, I would. I don't want to get much closer than that, just because unless it's later in the season and leaves are out,
Then
maybe you can move in a little closer. But I have bumped them off the roost a few too many times, I'm ashamed to say, but
Yeah,
you know,
it happens if you turkey hunt.
And you know, if you've got a call that is reasonably loud, that bird's going to know where you are. You don't have to be right at him. You know, he knows where you are the first noise you make. So
It's amazing to me how they can do it. I don't know, but when the call comes out, sometimes I can be out there and like, did you hear that? Was that over here, or was that over here, or where was that? Turkeys know, don't they?
Yeah.
When they hear a noise, they know where that sound's at. They got you pretty
the
well
whole world's
pinpointed.
based on it. So
Yeah,
sights and sounds. So.
Sights and sounds. They're really good at it. Next question is from Seth Melton. What is everyone's favorite Kentucky turkey hunting memory? You got it doesn't have to be for you guys. What have you something you've done in the field that was just really unique or different? Maybe not hunting wise, but just out doing your research. What's something that you were like, that surprised me? I didn't know this about turkey.
Well, research-wise, so far we're capturing a few birds here. It was before COVID. Joe Lacefield, who was on the show last year, my regional biologist close to me, we were catching some birds, and it's pretty neat. We caught a Jake and watched him. Having a GPS transmitter on him, you can really fine scale location information. It's really neat to see where that bird hangs out.
Yeah.
He hung out in a pretty small area on this one farm, all summer, all winter, and leading up to, he was pretty much in the same area right until turkey season, and he took off moving along the Kentucky River right before turkey season and got shot like 6 or 7 miles away on opening morning.
6 or 7
So
miles.
it's just amazing how he spent his whole life there, and he must have got his butt whooped several times and had to get out of Dodge, and he zigged when he should have zagged, clearly.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
that was really neat, just to pull it all together, you know. Get to do what we do with the fun research stuff, get to look at the data, and then find a neat result. So that's pretty cool.
That's really cool. You got any interesting
I'm
turkey?
glad he gave me a chance to think on it there a little bit. But this is going back to the banding project, and I've got a bunch of memories of killing birds. But last year, I was going out to set a net up, rocket net. We were going to catch birds the following morning, and I didn't think I was going to have enough time that afternoon to actually set on the bait site. I took my grandfather with me to help me. Papa's 76-year-old. He's the man. He raised me. I'm named after him, you know. So he's the one that got me into hunting and everything. And so I took Papa out there with me, and we got things set up a little quicker than I expected. I thought, well, we're here. Let's set up. And we ended up catching 13 jakes out there.
Oh, okay.
And that was pretty daggone special to share that with Pops.
I'll tell you what, if you're a person who really, really loves hunting and fishing, you know, getting into what you guys do, a lot of your days of work, even though you're not carrying a firearm, a lot of your days at work are kind of like hunting. When I went out there and did that trapping, I was like, but we're not hunting for one, we're hunting for 15 if we can get them. It's an interesting field that what you guys get to do every single day is really, really interesting because you're dressed like you're hunting, you're setting up like you're hunting, you're scouting like you're hunting. Yeah. But yet you're banding them and turning them loose. It's
catch and release.
It's catch and release. Yeah, you don't get to catch and release when hunting very often. It's really cool. Officer Brace, tell me what your. I know you did some turkey hunting last year.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about what's your favorite experience in the either patrolling or in hunting yourself.
For sure, I'll go just hunting myself. So far, so I haven't harvested a turkey yet, but just getting out in those woods, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, before the woods, seeing the woods wake up in the morning, that sunrise coming up, birds chirping, all that stuff, and that bird's coming off the roost. You might miss a shot, such as I did, one year, and it happens, but just seeing the woods, come to life.
Oh, yeah.
In the morning.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling for sure.
Yeah, I tell you what, I've had a lot of really cool experiences, and I turkey hunted for quite some time, but I really have turkey hunted more since I've started this particular job. And I'll tell you, I still make the mistakes that all young hunters make, even though I'm not young. I haven't been turkey hunting but about 10 years, but I one time didn't know my property boundaries, and I was being a little too conservative, and I saw this bird coming, it was working, I'm like, on the wrong side of the fence, can't shoot that bird. And I sat there and let that bird work all year long, not shooting that bird, until I found out that that landowner owned that piece of property too, and I was completely legal and fine to take that bird. And sometimes you gotta talk to your landowners. Talk to your landowner. They may be busy, they may be turning that tractor off to give you 3 minutes of their time, but if you can find some time to have them either walk your property, or they know the parameters of their property, or where they see birds, what time of day they're seeing birds, there's no more useful information than talking to a landowner that spends their life on that piece of property. They can probably tell you where those birds are at and where they're moving, where they're coming down, and where they're roosting. They probably have a basic idea. So spend some time with those landowners if you can. It may make for a much better hunt. Well, I tell you what, I was excited about turkey hunting before tonight's show started, but I'm even more excited now. We're right around the corner. Youth season is April 1st and 2nd. 2 weeks later starts our general season, which that starts up on April the 15th. It's here. It's here. It's happening. I'm already hearing some reports of gobbling. You said you've heard some gobbles as well. Mm-hmm. So I tell you what, if you've never tried turkey hunting, give it a try. It's a lot of fun. And if you have turkey hunted for quite some time, taking a person on their first turkey hunt, especially if it's your kids, it's probably more exciting than taking a bird yourself. You know, this youth season, April 1st and 2nd, if you get a chance to take a new hunter out there and turkey hunt, take full advantage, because it definitely is a lot of fun. Well, I am super excited about the spring turkey season, and hopefully you're making time to get outdoors and experience spring turkey hunting as well. And remember, hunting and fishing on private property is a privilege. Always ask permission and thank the landowner. Until next week, I'm your host, Chad Miles, and I hope to see you in the woods or on the water.